So, so this is a little bit. The topic is it's gonna be it's good, and it's also a little feels like it's a little different than what we usually talk about or how we usually go about this kind of thing.
Mhm.
And and I'm also gonna use you for an article that I'm writing. So, um, so the article that I've been writing and then I'm gonna publish tomorrow. It's called Five Things I Wish They Told Me When I Started Life Coaching. And it's check 1 2 3 1 2 3. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Um, so when I say five things, I mean I could make it six or seven or whatever,
Only
but I
five.
have five right now. It's already pretty long.
The problem will
But
be coming up with just like limiting it to five.
yeah, well, no, actually, it doesn't have to limit to five. It's just
Yeah.
that happens to
Yeah.
be where I'm at. So things I wish they told me when I started life coaching, and so I'd like to. So I have five. You may have some similar ones, but um, yeah, it's really the more I wrote it and then talked to Paula and got one of hers too, and that it was like, wow, this is really good. And I really do wish they told me this. Like it was, I'm like, wow, this could really maybe this could save some people, some heartache that I had to go through. Um, so yeah, so that's what I thought of. Are you excited about that?
I am.
All right, and especially after coming back from ACS.
Hmm.
Um, all right, so let's jump into it. So the first one. So okay, I'm gonna see if I can balance this between like I have a bunch of these, but I really want to hear some of yours too. Um, well, let's see. Before I say any of mine, what do you have any that come to your pop up in your head?
The problem is that they're occurring to me too quickly for me to like focus on one.
Well, we can make this as long as we need to make it. So,
And I also have a question like context, like
yeah.
becoming a life coach. Um, I think in terms of there are many stages of
Hmm.
becoming a life coach. There's like, oh, life coach, that sounds like a great idea. What should I do?
Yeah.
Then there's the people who have done some sort of training and they're deciding to become a professional life coach.
Hmm.
It's like I make a strong distinction there. It's like first there's sort of like learning how to coach people.
Yeah.
And then there's like, oh, I want to make money at this. Suddenly there's several new worlds that are introduced once that aha is happens.
Right. Well, I think what you're also speaking to is something that you're speaking to one of the things, really, because I don't think people realize that when they start.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense to me now, but I don't know that given someone who's just starting out, I think that distinction and that difference may be like, what are you talking about?
Good point. So let's start there. Like have that as a strong distinction. First, there's this initial period where whether it's intentional or whether it's accidental, you're becoming a good coach. You're just more and more able to help create the space in which transformation happens for someone who's across from you that you're in conversation with.
Hmm.
And then, like, that's not synonymous with being a professional coach.
Hmm.
There's a later stage where you realize that you actually want to make money doing that.
And like
And
consistent money, or like something that's like because you may have made like a few bucks here and there as like
yeah,
a regular or whatever coach, but then like having it be a almost like a career, I guess is what I've been calling it. Like having something that or like it's a full time job.
hmm.
Is different. Yeah.
And actually, I might even think of that as a third stage. There's sort of like
Okay.
there's becoming a coach. There's someone who just like enjoys coaching people, enjoys counseling, holding space for like the skill set of helping people
Uh-huh.
in a certain way. And then there's wanting to make money at it. That's where it sort of becomes a profession.
Hmm.
And then there's a later stage where you actually want to be doing this as a career.
Hmm.
And I think it's helpful to separate the like, okay, I want to make some money doing this. I want to turn this into a business.
Hmm.
to like, I want this to be my career. I want to make a living at this. Because for most people, just that stage of starting to make money as a coach, it's going to really trip them up if they think that they're going to hit the ground running, making a living at coaching. There are many people who do. Like, I know a lot of coaches
Yeah.
where usually coaches who are already very successful in another world,
Mm-hmm.
already very profitable. Like there's already like a lot of runway
Yeah.
for them to leap into and immediately start making a very healthy, prosperous living as a
Yeah.
coach.
I've got
Most
another one that
coaches,
centers around that too. So good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
cool. Most coaches do not have that experience.
Yeah.
Most coaches, like for a lot of coaches, it's just edgy to charge $10 for a coaching session.
Right.
There's like, can I charge for this? Can I get paid for this?
Yeah. And I think if coaches have been around other coaching, let's say they've been in a corporation and then their executive team and maybe them themselves have paid thousands of dollars for coaching, then they know, oh, like of course I can offer that to this dude for $5,000. Like, who, that's normal for them, in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, coaches who start from there, they do get to skip this middle phase. So this is going to be different for different people, depending on where they're at.
Yeah.
There's even people who are successful at selling coaching, but they have no idea what coaching is still.
Right.
So like they successfully create clients, then they sort of have the fraud syndrome, like, okay, wait, now how do I coach? Am I really a coach? Do I deserve to be doing this? What am I doing? I'm successfully selling, but am I really creating the value?
Right. Yeah.
So different people, different challenges, but most coaches, they're the stages.
Yeah.
Like the people who are in transformational work, they spend years, decades even, and they sort of become good at coaching. Then there's that edge of starting to charge money.
Yeah.
It's like it turning into a business and everything that happens there. Then it's like continuously scaling up within the business until it becomes a career. And no attachment also. Like you don't have to be making six figures or seven figures as a coach to be a good coach, to be like worthy of calling yourself a coach. You can not be charging and still be an amazing coach. You can be have it as a tiny side business, something that you love to do or something that nourishes you, but maybe you're not that much into the business aspect of it.
Right.
So it's still a side thing. There's a lot of coaches who have a job and that's where the money comes from. And they just love to coach.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. All right. So I'll bring up one of mine since it's very relevant to what you're talking about. And how I put it is, it's not who you know, but that really, really helps. And so this is actually in contrast to a lot of stuff that I learned with Steve and Rich. And so, one of the things that gets preached from the pulpit of coaching coaches is, you don't like you serve people powerfully enough, and you can get high paying clients. High paying clients are just as easy to enroll as low paying clients, and it's not who you know, it's what you do with who you know. And I found that while there is truth in that, it's not really exactly true, because what I found anyways in actually watching the different, like you, I know a lot of coaches. I've watched them go through and watched some progress in terms of, if we're just talking about income progress, watch people go and progress faster or slower. And I noticed that the people that were able to go into and earn more money quicker were the ones that were surrounded by people that had the money to pay a couple $1,000s a month for coaching, or and that could have been for different reasons. It could have been maybe they just left the corporate world and they knew they had a lot of, they were just around a lot of people that made good money. It could have been that their spouse was just like their circle of friends, was just really wealthy. It could have been that they're part of their church, and their church is, a lot of people just have a lot of money. And it sounds like, in a way, like when I say this, I know that there is like this kind of like, resentful hippie part of me, that kind of like at this point, I mean, I feel like my social situation is different than it was 3 years ago. But like, I remember feeling that like 3 years ago, being like, wow, like I would love to charge $50,000 a year for coaching, but you can't get blood from a stone. Like, there's just like there's people out there that I've made profound differences in their life, and it doesn't matter how much I serve them; they're not going to be able to afford X amount of money, you
Hmm.
know. And I really feel like that I didn't get that until later, and I think that there's that this idea of, okay, it's not who you know. Um, I feel like that's preached in a way that is not the complete truth. So
Yeah.
that's something I wish people told me, that it's okay to know that, like, high paying clients for the most part, with a few exceptions, come from wealthy people. And I
Yeah.
think that was kind of I didn't get that as much when I was there, when I was learning things.
Yeah. And that's an important aha. One second, I'm gonna put in headphones.
And it's cool that if you really want to get high paying clients, yeah, serving people powerfully is great. But what would it also be like to actually consider, how do I get myself around those kind of people? I mean,
Hmm.
that would be like, yeah, go to fucking networking things. Like, who cares? I mean, like, do that and actually, position yourself to be around those people, because that was kind of shunned when I was growing up as a coach. It was like, you don't need to just serve the people you know. Go start with your inner circle. Don't try to reach out and find those people because they have a lot of money. But I found that there's, so. Oh, did we freeze? Are you frozen? Oh. Dude, this internet is so fuck. You know what, dude? My internet has been really annoying lately. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, now I can see you.
My internet has been super annoying lately. Do you have call recorder?
I do not yet.
Okay. All right. I was just thinking I could like go on LTE on my phone or something, but that might happen a few times.
Okay. Are we still recording? Do we still have a
Yeah, no,
flow?
it's still recording. I mean, I just, having to edit movies is not my idea of a good time
Well, why don't
sometimes.
we
So,
leave this in?
all right, fine.
It's like
Fuck it.
welcome
Who
to the
cares? Yeah,
realities of
welcome
like
to whatever.
of media. It's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, it's like I don't have time to go back and edit this
All
stuff.
right.
I'm
Perfect. Okay.
coaching people.
Yeah.
I
Or
don't want
not. All right. Cool. So yeah,
So yeah,
I said some stuff and then it was blank. So go ahead.
yeah, very important point and question. And yeah, there's a lot of, and I think there's a trap in there as well, because it's like it's who you know. That's sort of there's sort of a fixed mindset. The way that most people use that phrase,
Hmm.
it's like, well, if I'm not surrounded by those people, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But yeah, there's a lot of, especially in prosperous coach community, there's a lot of emphasis on who do you already know? Like your next client is in your email inbox.
Right.
Who do you want to connect with?
Hmm.
And in many ways, that's true. And I think that's really valuable for that stage where you're trying to fill your calendar with coaching conversations,
Hmm.
where you're just like getting the momentum. You're not even like worried about getting paid, creating clients, whatever. Just like first be coaching a lot.
Hmm.
In a way, I'm like embedding a lot of the things that coaches need to know in each
Yeah.
of these things.
Yeah.
So there's that stage, and that's where it's really useful to like, who can I talk to? Who do I want to talk to? Who do I know? Who do I want to check in with?
Yeah.
And that's also a trap if you're only talking with those people because you might be surrounded by people who are struggling.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've definitely been learning in stages in my practice because, like, I'm in the Bay Area. I'm surrounded by struggling coaches
Right.
who have zero interest in hiring their own coach.
Hmm.
So it's not surprising that they're struggling.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like something at some point when you realize that the people you're talking to are not going to be signing up with you, or it's like, then stop talking to them. It's not, so I'd reframe this as it's not who you know, it's who are you talking to? if there's people who you really want to be working with, like your ideal clients, uh, find ways to be talking to them. And if not talking directly to them, talk to the people around them, talk to the people who know them. It's like work your way up that ladder socially. And in that sense, so it's not the strategy of talk to your friends and family and see if you can get them as coaching clients.
Mm-hmm.
It's who are you being? It's like being a coach, going out in the world, networking, going where your ideal clients are, just like finding yourself further and further into their worlds. And from there, it's just sort of like, who do you want to talk to? Don't limit it to who you already know. So, who do you know is fixed. Like as if you're stuck with who you know, you're either really lucky or you're screwed.
Yeah.
It's like, who do you want to know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like that's not a fixed thing. I like that, and in a way it's like you can always change who you know. But but then once you like who you know ultimately will decide that, but you can change it in a sense.
Yeah. And when you shift where you're coming from, how you talk about what you do, and when you share like who you work with, people will know people. Like when you're really impacting with people with coaching, you could help like some random person who has like zero chance of actually hiring you as their coach.
Right.
But you say like who you actually work with might be several steps up.
Right.
They might know someone like that or someone in that direction.
Right.
It's possible, not a given,
Totally.
to like quickly step up into like the world of your ideal clients.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a great place to come from. Like I think that, this idea that everybody, everybody is a gateway to something you ultimately want, and that you treat everybody as if they have that kind of value, and that they garner that kind of like attention and like presence when you're with them. I think that's a beautiful place to come from.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which brings me to another thing I wish they knew, and this is probably the most controversial one. And I'm the
You
statement.
controversial?
Yes, the statement is very black and white, but of course I'm gonna I'm fleshing it out in the actual article. But here's the statement: don't sell coaching to your friends. Now, clearly there are exceptions to this, but this is something I didn't realize until I stopped coaching. Until I actually took coaching off the grill and was like, okay, cool. I'm still going to coach a little bit, but I'm not going to pursue coaching. I'm not going to call myself a coach. I'm going to do other things. And what I experienced was a pretty nice sense of relief, because I realized I could stop showing up like a coach around all my friends and stop trying to enroll everybody that I met. And I think that now, I don't think that because you're a coach you have to be like go through what I went through. I think there's plenty of coaches that have a nice balance and separate their professional life and their personal life in a way that is actually healthy, and mine wasn't. I even remember when I was up in Le Connor doing a 4-day thing with George Pransky, and he had said somebody had asked him, do you coach any people around here in Le Connor? And Le Connor's like a little tiny small town and up in near Seattle. And he's like, no. His name and Linda, like, no, we don't. Like, we don't coach anybody here. And in fact, all of our clients like fly in, or we coach them on Skype, and there was something that to me that really spoke to the like quality of life being a priority in that decision to not to like have a really separate personal life and business life. And I'm not just talking about really separate in terms of like, okay, if one of your friends asks you for coaching, then you set up a professional call in your office and not do that at dinner. And like, I think that's important too.
Yeah.
But I'm almost thinking like literally not coaching them, like just actually having it that like your friends are off limits and your family too. But that they're really off limits for you as a professional coach, but you have other coaches you can refer them to, and that's fine. That if I were to do it all again, I think I would actually, I would do something like that. I would work it so, and maybe through more marketing or through actually reaching out to different networks of people that I want to work with as a professional, but maybe I'm not as inclined to be social with. I've been thinking about that a lot. Thoughts, Michael McDonald?
Yes. I'm trying to feel into like how I totally agree in many ways, and I go back and forth on how absolute to make that.
Yeah.
It's definitely advanced to coach friends. When you're first starting, it's easy to give free coaching sessions to your friends. They probably won't get much value. They're not actually invested. They're just your friend. They're just you. Even if they get the life-changing insight, they probably won't do anything about it.
Right.
That's one of the sad things about
Yeah.
coaching your friends. It might actually quickly depress you about coaching.
And they're not going to be honest about how much they got out of it either. They're going to just lie to you and be like, "That was the best thing ever," you know? Yeah.
It's like, yeah, thanks. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I have coached some friends, and it takes a lot more context setting. There's needs to be that air of there's friendship, and then there's the coaching container, and it's sort of like the light bulb goes on. It's like, okay, coaching on, okay, coaching off.
Right. Like a doctor would. I mean, it'd be easier in some professions, you know, where it's like clearly we're going to like be fixing your knee here, and then we're not going to be fixing your knee at dinner or something, you know.
Yeah. And actually, like, this is something for me to consider for myself because, like, it might be really helpful for me to put in a policy like that I will not coach my friends, which then gets sort of like muddy. It's like, okay, well, where do I define friend? Because there's definitely people on the edges of my network, people I know a little bit, and often they're great clients.
Totally.
People I see here and
Friends of
there.
friends, you know, are great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people who are like friendly, sort of friends, depending on what you mean by friend.
Right.
And one approach, which I love, and I'll sort of play with later on, it's like whether I want to take this on myself, like that, like I do not coach friends and family. They get to like salivate and wish that I would coach them.
Right.
It's like, please, like I'll pay you your rate. It's like, nope, I will not coach you.
Yeah.
Because what I've really been stepping into is like choosing who I work with. And it is both, it's such a relief to not be worrying about the social with whoever you're working with. So the more that you've met them and only worked with them within a coaching context, the more ease it creates. And certainly friendship can happen through coaching, but it's almost like best if it starts with coaching as the container.
Yeah, I definitely agree, you know. And because there's a point where clients, sometimes, where clients, you'll feel like a sense of completion. It's okay, cool. Like our work is complete with each other. Maybe we work together for 6 months, maybe a year, maybe came to a couple workshops and then a retreat and then you coached me for a couple months or whatever. There's like an arc, you know. And at that point, I think when you feel that completion, it's totally cool to move into a place of like friendship. You know, I've got there's a handful of people that started as clients, and it was very professional, very transformational, you know, really worked out great for everybody. And it's just clear that at this point, you know, they don't need me anymore. You know, I served whatever purpose I served in their life, and you know, and they're good now for whatever, like, you know, I think that I think on some level that's kind of how we operate with each other. And I'm sure while they could come back to me and we could do awesome coaching sessions, like I actually kind of want it to feel more of like, that bird has left the nest and that it's okay. And I mean, yeah, if you want more help on stuff, like I got plenty of friends I can refer to you to, but like, let's not hang on to what we had. Let's just move on. You know, now you're my friend. Like, yeah, call me up, whatever you need, you know, like, you know, that if you call me and have a quick chat, it's not going to be transformational, you know, because that's not how it works. However, you know, if you need something or you want some advice, something, like, yeah, give me a call, whatever. And I think that's really useful. And then
Hmm.
the family thing, dude, I was so bad when I was coaching. Like I even like denied. I was like, I don't know, maybe you can work with family. Like I was bad. I mean, I really didn't make any sort of distinction or draw a line, and yeah, it was just
Yeah.
and also and then what happens too is that like you get so you get so wrapped up in the identity of coaching. And I'm saying this speaking just directly from my own experience because what it was is like, well, everywhere I went, I was a coach because I coached everybody. That's what I did. And there was no one that wasn't my client. In that, so of course I'm showing up as kind of a coach for people because that might be my next client, and even Rich and would say this with like, hey, you never know who your next client is, the next person you're talking to, blah, blah, blah. Well, that while that may be true, the quality of life that brings with it isn't always what we want. And it will lead to burnout too, which is also what I experienced, which is like I got burned out after like a year of like doing this and like trying to be a coach for everybody. Um, and so that the idea of the identity of a coach. And I even remember Paula asking me once, it was like 2 years ago, she saw this and she asked, who would you be if you weren't a coach? You know? And I was like,
Hmm.
that sucks. It was very confronting. It's like, it's true. You're right. Like all I've been being is a coach, you know? Um, and, and if I didn't coach my friends, that probably wouldn't have happened. If I had a line that says, no, I'm at a party now. Like this isn't the time to try to corner somebody on a couch and have a deep transformational conversation with them. Like it's just the time to hang out. And if I find myself putting that coaching hat on, I quickly take it off because that's not what I'm here for. And I
Yeah.
didn't have that distinction. It just felt so good to be a coach. I was getting my ego was getting so much out of it. A lot of the perceived things of what comes with being a coach and all this kind of stuff. And only after I gave it up did I actually realize the downsides of collapsing those two things for myself. But again, I was really bad about it. So sure, eventually I would have like learned or evened out a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah. Also, if you're coming from the place of being a coach who has a full practice, it's like you're completely okay. You don't need another client. Then you can relax that. Like coming from that place, it's like yeah, you're a coach, but you're not like looking for an opportunity to coach.
mm-hmm.
When you go to a party, you're there for to have fun or like for whatever intention you've set for that party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um, and yeah, it's like you can play with that because for beginning coaches, they actually need to exercise being a coach out in the world. They need to like really build that muscle of remembering that they're a coach, remembering that they can bring great value to almost anyone that they talk to. Doesn't mean that they'll become a client, and definitely do not be trying to get them as a client, but there's a possibility.
mm-hmm.
So it's really good to exercise that. But once you're really good at exercising that, then you also need to be able to relax that and not be attached to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, at first it is like it's like a out of your comfort zone exercise that's really useful. It's like what? Like me tell my friends I'm a coach? Like no, like there's like that, oh, so people do that and then sort of show their feathers and then it's like but then yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's definitely like a really useful stage at which that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an important point in general about the flow of becoming a professional coach. There are stages and there are exercises which are appropriate depending on where you're at and inappropriate at other times.
Yeah.
For example, Rich has the no game, where you go out and you're going to collect no's. You're making bold requests. You celebrate every time you get a no,
Right.
and you're working your edges. You're working your fear of rejection. That works a certain level, and I think like Steve coaches people on this all the time. It's like, oh, they've been going out and playing the no game, but for some reason they haven't been getting a lot of money, or like their business hasn't been thriving. It's like, well, stop it. Go
Yeah.
out and get yeses.
Yeah.
Which people are saying yes? What are people going to say yes to? Go do that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, it's like the behind that. like that there are different things to be working at different times. And sometimes it might be like for a year you might be working on something, or it might be just a week. That's actually one of the reasons that it's really, really valuable to have a coach if you're becoming a coach, especially if you're becoming a professional coach.
Hmm.
Because one of the things that they do is they help you see what are you currently working on? Where are you personally in your journey? What's the current edge? Because there's so much advice out there. So there's so many strategies, and some of them are genius, but they might not be for you where you're at right now. It's
Hmm.
like, which strategy would be best for you to be trying out right now for where you're at in your practice? Because you'll evolve,
Yeah.
and the next week you might need to do something the opposite of what you were doing the previous week.
Yeah. 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 All the meanwhile listening to your own gut and intuition about where you should be at too, you know. So
Mhm.
yeah, totally. Um, so okay, I have a couple more, but do you have any? Nothing that
I've,
was
I've
perfect segue. So what do you got?
Okay, another that comes to mind is you're not selling minutes with you. It's like you're not selling time when a client is paying to like enter a coaching relationship, a good coaching container with you.
Hmm.
It's not manual labor. They're paying for the possibility of their life completely transforming. And that might happen in the first 15 minutes of a conversation. That might happen after months. So you can adjust value for like part of the value is like how quickly it happens,
Hmm.
but you also don't have direct control over that.
Hmm.
So your job as a coach is to create that space in which their transformation is possible. And what can you do so that it just becomes more and more possible, more and more likely?
Right.
But it's still their job to step up
Yeah.
into that container.
So
So
okay, go ahead.
yeah, there's like some people where there's a lot of chemistry, like where you're sort of like just like locked in, like both coach and client. It's like where it's just like value will skyrocket quickly. There's some people where it's going to take a lot of work. This is one of the reasons that like some people will like easily pay 10 or 100 times as much as other people,
Hmm.
and you will enjoy 10 times or 100 much times as much working with certain clients than others.
Hmm.
So look for the sweet spots and
Cool.
focus on creating space where value happens. And it also means like most of the an addendum to this is most of the value in coaching actually happens in between the sessions.
Yeah.
There's often the insight, then like how can you integrate that into your life? And the coach like helps make sure that that is happening. They It's not just a great inspiring conversation. It's like, oh, that was amazing. I thought all these great things and then I'm going to return to my normal life and do nothing.
Hmm.
Coaching, especially ongoing coaching, is making sure that the transformation happens, not
Hmm.
just the insight.
Hmm. All right, so I'm gonna challenge you on that a little bit because
Okay.
I know you just came back from a coaching weekend, so you know, um, so you're saying that the value of the coaching is not the minutes. It's not manual labor, right?
Hmm.
Um, have you ever coached someone and had it been without the minutes? Like, have you ever removed the hours of coaching and still had an agreement with somebody?
We keep the hours as a default structure. The hours are actually like these are the parts of the calendar that I've committed to being available. And there's sometimes I'd like this to be like more frequently. Like this tip is also something I'm growing into even more, where we'll end the session early because they got something. It's time for them to go act on it. It's time for them to sit with it. If we kept on talking, we distract from it. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's just like less time. And part of like the reason for scheduling sessions is just pure logistics. Make sure that I'm available for them to talk. in case like I'm too busy or they're too busy.
Mm-hmm.
So the time together is more logistical.
Mm-hmm.
If they need something, then I'll try to be available for more. I'll try to be available for additional calls, email coaching, and I sort of feel that out. And that's a different dynamic with each client. Sometimes it's a challenge just to get them to have a session with me. Like when my clients disappeared for a couple of weeks, I was like, "Hey, do you want a session? What's going on?" It's like keep on checking in
Right.
until they come back, and then the flow comes back again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I hear you. And one of the things I really learned from working with Rich that was really great, and I've used it and applied it in so many other ways, was this idea that I could make like the extent that I could make people work in between our sessions, and doing that through either like incentivizing them or whatever I needed to do, that was going to determine like the success of our relationship, not necessarily what happened in that hour. But
Hmm.
it's like I just look at it as like personal training. It's like, cool, if you meet with a personal trainer an hour a week, like clearly you're not going to get in shape if you don't do anything in between those sessions. So it's like,
Yeah.
how can I get them to like, run on that treadmill every day, or how can I get them to go out and, whatever they need to do, and then how can I create incentives? How can I, um, talk about, okay, so yeah, why didn't you do that? Like, let's look at like what was in the way and all that kind of stuff. And so I totally hear you. I totally hear you. I wanted to challenge it because in a way, um, it can, like, as a coach, when you sometimes we can just say that and have it be almost kind of black and white. Like, really, we actually have it like that. And the truth is, people are also paying for the conversations with you, because on some level that's there is value there is like absolute value in the minutes spent with somebody.
Mm.
Because at least I got that for myself. Like, I would notice that with, and maybe it's just because that I felt like I associated the value with that, so I wanted it as a client. But like, I really felt like being like coached is like being in a workshop for me. Like, I get insights about my life. I get to learn about myself the more minutes I spend coaching, and it's like almost like a direct relationship. Um, so, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. And like those are the instances where the time together is creating a lot of the transformation.
yeah,
Um, yeah. It's different for each client. But it's important to keep the logistics of sessions, both for my sake and for theirs.
hmm yeah, nice. I've got another one I'm gonna try to make it very kind of black and white in a way. And I'll tell you the story of how this one came up. I had a guy email me like a couple months ago, and I forget what he asked me, but he was like, he was asking like, should he hire X coach for X amount of money, or maybe I had worked with that person or something. I forget. Um, but he was sort of new to I think maybe newer to the prosperous coach community, and had seen that I'd been around for a little while with that. And so I told him, I said, all right, oh no, here's what it was. His wife was kind of contesting him spending a lot of money on coaching, because he's got a full-time job that works, it's good, pays the bills. And his wife was feeling like he was spending too much money on coaching, and he was coaching a little on the side, but not that much. Right. And I said, cool. I said, here's a rule that maybe I wish I would have followed. You could follow any rule too much, but like, here's a guideline. Um, Only spend money on coaching that you make from coaching.
Mhm.
Again, not that it has to be like that. Like, but if I actually followed that rule, I do think that my coaching career would have been more prosperous. I would have been happier with it, and I would have saved myself a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, and even if I was a coach now and I was coaching coaches, um, that would be actually a rule that I would set for them, is that I would say that I will only accept um, the fee in dollars that you've made coaching other people. And I don't know how
Mm.
we'd measure that. I mean, it'd be, that's money is money, but like in a way, I'd want to say, okay, what are your, let's say, what did you make last year as a coach? If they say, well, last year I made $80,000 as a coach. Okay, cool. And what are your yearly expenses? Like about, my yearly expenses about like $45,000. Okay, great. So I won't work with you for more than $25,000. Let's say, like in a year. And I think that, had I held that for myself as both a coach and a client, that would have been really smart.
Yeah.
I see you're in agreement with this to some extent.
To some extent. I'm coming up with a distinction.
Yeah.
And this is like not even just for coaches. Like I include, yeah, for me, the distinction is whether the client who's like considering paying for coaching, whether they are an employee or an entrepreneur. If they're an employee, like the amount of money that they make is set. So really just like it's a pure investment in lifestyle improvement. Unless they're looking to get a new job or like make more money, where I usually don't work with those people. I usually work with entrepreneurs because with an entrepreneur, like I want the clients that I work with to be making more from working with me than if they didn't work with me.
Yeah.
It's like whether it's immediate or not. I prefer for it to be immediate. Like often, like we'll begin with like, okay, so how are you going to make 10 times as much as what you just paid?
Right.
Working.
Right. That always feels good. Everybody feels good about that. You can go home and tell your mom about that. Everybody loves that. Yeah. Immediate ROI. Yeah.
Yeah, especially just like for entrepreneurs, like you pay this much money. Like I want you to make that money back and a lot more, and that for that to just be the beginning.
Right. My favorite story was when Steve Chandler said something about and he was working with Hardison, and he was putting together like a proposal to coach a company and do consulting, and he brought it in. It was like, the package was like $9,000, and Hardison looks at it and he's like, okay, this is great. Yeah, that's pretty good. Well, actually, there's one thing missing. Hey, give me your pen. And he puts an extra zero on the end of the $9,000, and then the company accepted it. And I'm like, that's the kind of ROI I want as a coach, man. Like $89,000, and like, yeah, that was a good session,
That's a good session.
But that's just like that's the kind of like that's this ideal, like, oh, perfect, like that's literal like boom, literal ROI, like what a great thing. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. I like that. I mean, it's like in terms of you as a coach. So, I mean, certainly like you as a coach hiring other coaches, like in that position, would you say that you would follow this rule completely?
I'd follow the rule where I wouldn't be as attached to making the money back during or like right away, but that I will be making that much from the coaching. Like
I'm actually not even saying making it from the coaching. I'm saying prior to signing the check, you have made the money that you pay that coach through coaching clients.
Oh.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like, I like that. This is how I do it. It's like raise the money through coaching.
Yeah.
Then work with like the next coach.
Yeah. And if you don't raise the money, you don't get the coach. You have to work, and that's a motivator too, because if you're you're like, oh shit, I really want to do this, and I'm almost there, and okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like,
and not dipping into anything else, or not, like treating it as an actual business.
Yeah,
like its own separate entity.
In a way, it's still like still integrating all the coaching that I've already received,
right,
in order to get to the next level of coaching.
Totally.
It's just like I already know what to do. It's like, so I'm just gonna like do what I know, and it's gonna be more of a struggle at the beginning. Like this picks up momentum over time, because especially it's just like as you just start hiring like higher and higher end coaches, it gets easier, and there's more of a flow to it.
Yeah.
But it begins by putting in the work.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's cool. I think you're in total agreement with that. I definitely did not follow that. And that was, it was crazy. I mean, and it was just like a cockiness, that I was like, well, whatever, like, but I'll hire this coach and I'll make that money. I'll make it, the ROI will work, but after I hire the coach.
Yeah. And I'm starting to test this more with clients as well. It's just like, if you pay for this coaching, it's like, how are you going to make this worth it?
Right.
What are you going to do? And part of that is like, what are the things that they know that they could be doing right now that they're not doing? And they sign up with me, they start doing it. That right there is going to make it worth it. In addition to all the new layers of work that we will be working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, totally. No, that's a great question. Okay, I've got one more. This is a good one. Well, I'm curious if you have any more too, but I'll throw this one out first.
Okay.
So the way I put it was, some clients will manipulate you with money.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something that I saw happening over and over again. And I wish somebody had pointed it out so I could nip it in the bud when it happened to me. But basically the scenario is, you have a client as a coach, and the fee that client is paying you is really good. It could be that you're already got a full practice, but that client is like, paying you double. So that's your new rate. Or it could be that you just don't have any clients and this is your first client or whatever. But there's something that has you kind of attached to that client. And then what happens sometimes is, maybe it's because the client doesn't know any better. Maybe he's just testing you. Maybe he's just lonely and wants a friend. But like, that client starts to blur the lines of professionalism with the coach. Mm-hmm. And then the coach doesn't want to put their foot down because, part of the hard truth coaching is risking that relationship, is risking upsetting that person to the point that they say, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. Now, of course, what we also find is 99% of the time, that's not actually what happens. It just makes it stronger. But you're afraid of that when you're like, do I deliver this fucking, bomb? And I think that in those cases, sometimes what the coach will do is shy away from delivering that, collapse those a little more. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. No, you can come over, or I'll come to you, or I'll call you, or I'll do. And they kind of like start making these exceptions and getting kind of needy with that client. And then it turns into this kind of manipulative relationship where the client is not doing it on purpose, but it's like the coach is making all these exceptions for this client. And the client really doesn't want that anyways. They want someone who's just going to be like, no, like we're not doing that, or you're calling me, or you're showing up here. And if you don't show up here, we're not working together anymore. Like, we need a coach who's going to do that. But oftentimes, if there's a lot of money involved, and if that money it represents something for the coach that they really want to attain, then there's this like downward spiral process that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is something that most coaches really struggle with. Like, even the really like relatively successful ones, 6-figure, 7-figure coaches, still struggle with this to varying degrees.
Yeah. Because some people will pay you just for your company. That's the thing that really fucking got me. It was like, wow, like there's some people, especially people that have so much money that they don't just give it, that it just doesn't, they don't care. Like, there's people out there that will just be like, yeah, sure. Oh yeah, you charge $3,000 a month and I like talking to you. Sure. Here you go. And then they just want a buddy. I mean, really, like that shit happens. And it didn't, and yet it's so hard for me if I'm like, fuck man, what if I'm making $5,000 a month and now 2/3 of it is coming from this client or whatever, and it's like, shit, like, do I just continue being a buddy for $3,000 a month? Well, it's not a bad gig, like, and it's hard. Yeah.
That might be the perfect gig, as long as it's nourishing you. It's like, even,
but on some level, it's not. Like, on some level, it's killing you inside, because you're not really helping this person, and that the agreement was the transformational conversations that you started out talking about, and then you probably did serve this person really powerfully in the beginning, but then they're like, they kind of want to like buy you. They want to like, I see this so often that like people want, like it's must be some like childhood trauma thing or something, but like it's like what people will do is like you'll kind of be that hard ass in the beginning, and they like that, and they want to buy your love in a sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This totally
Yeah.
fucking happens. I'm just like, wow. And it's like, cool. I can buy this person, so then they won't. They'll always. They'll never. They'll never tell me that I'm not doing something right, or they'll just be unconditionally positive about everything I do, and that's not where a coach is supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And those clients are perfect teachers
Oh yeah.
for coaches.
Yeah.
Like those are the clients where the coach like learns to say no.
Yeah.
And 2 points for beginning coaches, and even like experienced coaches like need to get this. Like even though if you're hearing this, you're like hearing about like all these things to avoid, all these things to like maybe like be aware of. You're still going to fall into this trap, especially this one. You will have a client that completely drains you and is like not getting the value, and you're not really giving the value, and you're sort of falling into being needy.
Yeah.
So one thing is like most of these things that we've been talking about, like you will experience, you will have
Yeah.
all of these problems, and each of these problems will be a gift. Each of these
Yeah.
problems will be an opportunity for you to grow. It's one of the great things about coaches, like even in the ways that our clients challenge us, even the ways that we need to step up, we professionally keep on working on ourselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So those are the clients that you need to learn to say no to. Those are the clients where you need to learn to let go of being needy, like even if you need the money.
Yeah.
And those are also the clients where you get to ask yourself, what are your priorities right now? Like if you really need the money and this guy just like wants a buddy for a while, it's not really coaching, and you can try to turn it into coaching, but it's like you might actually accept the money for a while, knowing that it's a sacrifice,
Yeah.
knowing that that's a transition client. That's the client that in the future you will be saying no to, but you're accepting it right now because it's good enough.
It's
And this
pretty
is
bold. It's bold. I think that's bold to say, go for it and be their buddy. I mean, that I like the boldness of where you're going with that.
it's the same reason like most coaches, most like beginning coaches, like if money is a problem, get a job.
Yeah.
Don't like need
Totally.
the next client. Do whatever you need to do to make the money. And that also happens within coaching. Have the clients where it's like really real coaching, and you can have the clients where they're willing to pay and you're willing to coach them, knowing that a month from now, a year from now, you're going to be saying hell no to those people. And even for really experienced coaches, as you will keep on falling into this trap of like a little bit of neediness. Like the next when they add the zero and suddenly like you really want to work with a person who you didn't want to work with a moment ago, have your own coach. They're the person who can see when you're falling into neediness, when you're falling into like grasping. It's like, well, maybe I'll sacrifice my values here.
Right.
They're the
Having
ones
a
who can
coach
help.
is super helpful for that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because they're not you.
Right.
They're not going to get like that $1 million client.
Unless they're doing the same thing that you're doing with you. And
Yeah,
then it's like this.
which
And
which
then it
they
all
need their.
implodes.
That's why they need their coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which has
Totally.
me wonder who coaches Steve Hardison.
Right. That's what he says. Like, oh, I'm coached by God. Blah blah blah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's just like okay.
This isn't, this brings us to another point that I, yeah, I think I might add this to this, which is this idea that I had it for a while that, because when you get into the world of coaching coaches, it gets kind of wacky sometimes, because you start to build like these like coaching family trees in your mind, where you're like, oh, well, this person was coached by this person coached by that, and then you're like this like lineage of coaches. It's like some spiritual fucking like game. Like, oh, well, like Coach Yogananda, like Coach Jesus, and blah blah blah, and then so what I realized was after, because then what happened then is then I kept wanting to work up the tree. I kept wanting to be the coach of the coach of the coach of the coach, and then like the fourth removed coach or whatever. And it's like, okay, so what I shifted was, it's not a hierarchy or some kind of lineage. It's actually just like a party that where you get invited to. So like, yeah, you work with a coach and, but it's like, cool, you're in the room with all these other people that are working together and improving themselves. and especially if you're all kind of coaching in the same lineage, it's like the same party, like the Hardison party, let's call it. It's like that really that helped me shift things, because I just saw that, and I got caught in this, really. Like I think when I worked with Rich, I didn't have to, like, I really, really should have been working with other people. Like, it just didn't, and again, that goes back to the make money, then spend it. Like, I didn't make that money that I used to hire Rich. And I really should have said, okay, what have I made from coaching? Okay, let's say I've made $3,000. So I can spend, let's say 2,000 on a coach. Can I hire a coach for a couple months or 3 months for $2,000? Yeah, I probably could have hired a coach for 2,000. So, and so what? I may not have had like a brand name coach, but I definitely would have improved my coaching practice, and I would have really used that, because I would have been like, cool, like I want to then, go and make more because of this, and I would have worked harder, and it's like, and so yeah, seeing it as like the shift from seeing it as like some hierarchy lineage to just like a gathering or a party that we all go to, was a really big shift for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like hire a coach.
Yeah,
Don't
like
need
whatever.
to
It
hire
doesn't
the
like,
coach.
and even like peer coaching. Marshall Goldsmith talks a lot about peer coaching, and I really like. I just think that I think peer coaching is so valuable. Like, I'd almost want to set up. Oh, this is kind of a cool idea. I almost want to set up like a game plan or like a template for like how to peer coach most effectively. So like almost like a foolproof guide to peer coaching in a way that you could just give it to people, and that, I mean, like, I love just one thing that I had, I forget. Oh yeah, I think it was, yeah, I heard Marshall Goldsmith talk, or I watched him online or something like that. And he said, all right, this is the question, turn to the person next to you, like, and on the subject of whatever they're talking about, like, what's been working, like what hasn't been working. That's it. Like, and it's just like, cool. Like, you stick to that fucking agenda. Like, you're 80% of like the most valuable coach in the world. You've already hit that mark, and I so believe in like that kind of peer coaching is very much like kind of the future of what we need to be doing, because it's so simple. It's like live journaling,
Yeah, it's super valuable, and it's like a form of free coaching. Like, so it's accessible. It's like
Yeah.
it's easy to have a peer coaching relationship. If you have a peer coach, there's a cool tactic that I recommend. Like, actually pay each other. Actually
Yeah.
send each other checks, so that at least has a little bit more of that air of a professional
Yeah.
relationship,
Yeah.
both ways. And one like brief one-off peer coaching is really like a variety, working with a variety of coaches, as like with the ACS experience.
Yeah.
There's a lot of amazing things about that. I really got, like, through that experience, I really got the value of being coached in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Someone would coach me in like one way, then someone else would coach me in a completely different way.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to like me just having the opportunity to coach a variety of coaches. But yeah, it's like someone would coach me in one way, and then like that approach is suddenly like something that I have more access to myself.
Yeah.
I can bring that into the next session with a client. But one thing that was missing with a variety of peer coaching is that it's not the full on coaching relationship where there's someone out there looking out for you, thinking about you, trying to figure out like how can they best support you, like what do I need right now for my next step of evolution. And that's huge. Even just like knowing that there's someone out there on your side that you have access to, you can reach out to, you can ask a question when you're having a tough time, they're who you reach out to.
Yeah.
And that is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a way, it's like, and then what if we just like gave ourselves permission to reach out to those people and then actually use them as a resource? Cause like, God knows, like, most coaches are available, especially if you're pure coaching, and, and like, I'm sure, like, out of the 50 people in ACS or however many you guys had, like, 99% of them would just be super psyched to pick up the phone and help people in that class. So it's like there's this kind of like, could we use the free coaching to the actual max that it's there for, and we don't, yeah. Nice.
So for coaches, for beginning coaches, I want to speak to a very common pattern. The fear of being a fraud. It's like, am I a good enough coach? Am I qualified? Am I actually helping people? Because that's a really common one. And that's something that will really hold them back from going pro. One of the traps in thinking there is thinking that like the price that you set for your coaching, whether it's like $10 or whether it's $10,000, that's not a price on you. Like that's not a valuation of you personally. One of my favorite sayings here, I got this from Bill Barron, is like, you are not for sale. And it's also not even the value of your coaching, because your coaching is going to be significantly less valuable for one person, significantly more valuable for another person.
Sure.
The price is a measure of like their investment in their dreams. Like, how much do they see as possible?
Also relative to their wealth too.
Relative to their wealth. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Like the Jesus thing, like
yeah, if
poor person gives a lot, it's yeah.
Yeah, if they're like barely scraping together money for food, like them paying you $20 might be a huge investment.
Right.
If they're like a major CEO, their investment of time might be much more significant than the investment in $1 million.
Right.
So
that's a really good point. Actually, that helped me, because I'm working with a guy now I'm coaching him he's a musician, but he's also a really successful entrepreneur. And so, whatever our fee is for the month, it's fine. But I see that I really want to actually like have him get that, like, I really want, I think emphasizing the time even more. That's really good. I don't know how I put it. It just worked for me, but I can't put it yet.
Yeah. And I actually kind of think of it like, if I was working with someone where like they don't care at all about the money, and it's the time is the most precious, there's a good chance that'd be one of the things we'd be coaching around.
Yeah.
And that would actually be more of the payoff. It's not like, oh, I promise that you'll make like $2 million from spending $1 million for working with me. It's just like, I promise that, or do I want to promise?
Well, what I'm seeing is like, it's like if I say, hey, I need you to, like, if you want to work on this song together and you want to get this together, I need you to spend an hour tomorrow before our lesson, work on this song. And if he comes in and says I didn't do the hour, it would be the same as if he didn't pay me. Like, I would treat it as such. That's what I really got. That was really good. That's like, oh, cool. Like, you putting the time in is the same as you giving me the money. And just in the same way that I wouldn't I wouldn't work with you. I'd say, hey man, no worries. We just can't work together unless you pay what we agreed to pay. Same wing with the time.
Yeah, like they would need to invest the time. And also they'd be getting back more time in the nonlinear sense. It's like it would result in them having like more of the life experience that they want to have.
Taking out some of the busyness, whatever they need to do to actually make the time for what they're saying is important to them. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
That's
really so their payoff is more like time rather than money.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then seeing how, because they're struggling with they're struggling finding an abundance of time versus finding an abundance of money is easy. So that's great. Yeah.
Really important point. I know I probably need to complete sometime soon. Because I could probably do this for hours. This particular topic, this is too easy.
Yeah. I'm gonna write this, and I'm gonna actually post a link to this video at the end of the article too. So
cool. Oh wait, I was thinking of something, but I think I just forgot it.
Cool. Any final thoughts?
It was really important.
What's the one thing, if you could just sum it up in one sentence, you could speak to yourself whenever you consider your beginning point as a coach was. If you could just send yourself a note and it said like one brief thing, what would it be to you?
Get rid of anything and everything that is an in between you and serving someone. Don't like when you're getting started, do not waste your time creating a website, creating a business card, doing like all this media marketing. It's like find out how you can be serving people first. And almost every single time I've had a breakthrough when I've been coached around like my coaching business, it always comes back to us as like, oh yeah, because that's what would be most of service. It's because I lost that thread. It's like I was trying to impress or as being needy or there's some like the distractions are different. But once I reconnect to what would most be of service to this person, that reconnects me with this profession of coaching.
Nice. Nice. That's great. If I had one thing I could send a note back to myself, and it would be like around 2010, I think too. Can you hear me? Is okay? Is it choppy a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, it's good.
Fine.
If I could, I'd actually send a link to this article. It's an article that Rich had sent. It's like, not this particular article. That would be pretty profound.
It's amazing.
But, oh my God. He's written something in 2016. But it was actually an article by Steve Pavlina called 5-Year Commitments. Have you seen it?
I don't think so.
It's really like the opening line is everything. I mean, it's a great article. I didn't even read most. I read like half of it maybe, but it's like, it's simply that we drastically overestimate what's possible in 1 year and drastically underestimate what's possible in 5 years. That one line would like that. I mean, that's been like the foundation of everything I've been doing in the last 5 years, to be honest. Like maybe in the last 5 years, in the last like 2 years in a sense. Like that's what I've set out to do with my blog. I go, cool. I love writing. I know I could write for a while. So
Your audio just
I'm going to
stopped
keep
right there.
Okay. Is it going now?
Okay, now.
Okay.
Now I can hear you.
So it's like that's been the foundation of everything I've gone after in the last couple of years, is because I realized, cool, I got to stop doing things for some short-term gains and expecting it to work out. I need to go after something that I'm willing to spend at least 5 years at for it to be successful. And if I really got honest with myself back when I started coaching, I either would have not gone into life coaching, or I would have said to myself, okay, you know, I'm willing to like make this like a longer story. I'm willing to actually like, you know, have this put in the time that it's going to take for me to be that successful professional coach, you know? And I didn't. I was just really I was really impatient, and I was just wanting like a 6-figure income, you know, as fast as possible. And I wasn't really willing to say, okay, maybe the results I want are 5 years out. I kept thinking they're 1 year out. And now where I'm at is with everything. I mean, but especially this blog is a good example. Like I'm like, cool, I know this is going to work, but it's not going to work in a year. Or it might, I don't know, but like fucking like, but the point is that I'm willing to spend 5, even 10 years writing every single week on this blog and building the audience every single week and building the mailing list one person at a time and whatever like that takes. And I can say that because after years of testing and knowing myself, I know that writing one article a week that's maybe 1,000 words or so that I'm really happy with is not too much to expect from myself. In fact, looking back over my history over the last 10 years, that's been true for me. So I have a lot of data points to go on to say I'm willing to put in that kind of effort, you know, not because of some theory, but because I actually have been willing to put in that kind of effort. And so if I can continue this, and even to the point where I used to have a blog called The Male Blueprint, where I write about like what it means to be a man and stuff like that. And even that wasn't sustainable for more than a couple of years because I didn't care about that anymore at some point. I mean, yeah, sure, I write a little bit about that sometimes, but not really much anymore. So I switched over to Buddhism. So as long as I'm me and as long as I am writing, that's all that matters. I just have to write about things that I care about. And it could be anything. It could be politics. It could be like coaching. It could be the Navy. It could be whatever. And if people are willing to follow that because they're willing to follow it, and then that grows, that is a sustainable thing. And so if I could really just go back and tell myself one thing, it would be like, it'd be like a question. It's like life coaching. Are you willing to spend 10 years to make this successful?
Yeah.
And the answer would have been no. and that answer would have informed how I lived, and what I did. And I go, 10 years. Wow. 10 years. Oh shit. That's a long time. And that would, for my cocky 20-something-year-old self, that would have been like a real wake-up call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was like in Meister technique training, something that Sandy once said, it takes 20 years to become a successful actor. I think I've heard the same for coaching as well.
Musicians too, same thing, 10,000 hours. I totally believe that. Yeah.
Basically just like a large enough amount of time in order to intimidate someone, to make sure that they actually want this direction.
Totally. And I always overestimate. And that's exactly why I would have written 10 years to myself. Because maybe 5 years is more like the data.
5, I'll try it.
But if you're not willing to put 10 years in, you're not willing to put 5 in a sense, really. And I love that with the acting. Yeah, 20 years, it's great. Every time I do this, the number increases. Like I was like, are you willing to put 90 years in? It's like, yeah, totally.
It's like, there's the exploratory phase. Like I'm sort of playing with this, but it's like, then there's like levels of commitment. At some point you need to like really ask yourself, are you in this? Like 4, 5, 10, are you in this for the rest of your life? Is this worth it? And I wanted to tie this into something that we were saying towards the very beginning of the conversation. Put in the hours. This is really important for beginning coaches to hear. If someone is trying to sell you instant success, just do this, just set up your marketing this way, run away from that. Unless you actually want to become a professional marketer instead of a professional coach.
And that's what those guys did. They got sold that, and then they turned around and sold it to somebody else.
Yeah, they're just professionally selling marketing to people and calling themselves coaches, which they're not anymore.
Right. Well, they're coaching people on the coaching that they got sold to them, but it's like this weird...
Yeah, they're like, marketing consultants.
It's so
with
weird.
With like a little bit of coaching, and some of it's amazing coaching, but they're selling marketing.
Yeah. Totally.
Coaching is different. Coaching requires a lot of time. Coaching requires continuously working on yourself. You need to always be becoming a better coach, because being an amazing coach, that's the thing that's going to have your business grow quickly and easily, because people are so impacted, even just by your presence. The people like walk up to you like, oh my God, who are you? Before they even know that you're a coach. Like that's what creates a successful coaching practice. And it's going to take a lot of conversations, a lot of coaching, a lot of no's, a lot of learning to create proposals. Like all of this is a ton of work, a lot of learning sales, but all that within the world of you're coaching people nonstop, so that you have to turn people away. You have to say no to people. You have to raise your prices simply as a matter of time management and energy management.
Totally. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. This has been really fun. I knew when I thought of this idea for talking about this subject that this would be perfect, because I know how much you like talking about this, and it was great. Even more perfect that you just came back from the ACS weekend. So nice, man. Well, I look forward to more, and I'm going to put this online today so we can have it. I'm going to link to it at the bottom of this article, which I'm going to finish up to after our conversation today and add a few things.
Cool.
But I think this is going to be good. And then if people have come this far, they've clearly been really interested in stuff. So, sweet.
All right, awesome.
Good to talk to you.
Thank you. You too.
See you next week. Oh, did we set up something for next week? Did we?
Nope.
Let's do that.
Today is the,
I can do same time next week.
let's see, Tuesday at 10. Yes, I can do that.
All right. It's on.
All right.
All right. See you then.
See you then.
All right. Bye.
Bye.